Hi, everyone. My name is Nathan Rowe. I'm an ecologist with the NRCS out of the Sonora, California office. Um, and I want to show you a report that I've been working on for um, summarizing ecological sites. Okay, so many of you are probably familiar with EDIT, which is the ecological site database. Um, This is an example site in Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. And when you look and edit, there are lots of different sections. There's the general information section, physiographic features, climate features, and so on. In each of these sections, there's lots of narrative information and tabular information that needs to be populated. And so the report that I've been working on is designed to assist in populating these fields. So as many of you are probably familiar with, ecological sites are correlated to map unit components. So the properties that are getting populated in EDIT are really kind of a summarization of all the different components that are correlated to your ecological site. So this is what EDIT looks like, lots of different fields that need to be populated. Um, Here's a look at the reports that I've been working on. Sorry. So this is a report for, again, an ecological site in Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. So the report will state the site that it's reporting data on. Then it will discuss factors about how the report works, how to interpret it, things of that nature. And for that, I'm not going to discuss that right now. I'm going to have a separate video that discusses how this report works and how you should use it. But the purpose of this video will be to show you how to produce the reports yourself. But just to give you a kind of very brief overview of what the reports do, it summarizes the components correlated to your ecological site. So starting with landform is kind of, it goes through step by step through EDIT as you would by each section kind of encounter those different fields that need to be populated. So it will describe the landform. It also describes things both by the number of acres as well as the number of components, which is useful. Some things like word clouds, and then some graphical summaries for things like elevation, again, both summarizing by number of components and number of acres. But I'm not going to go into too much detail of using the report. Like I said, I really want to go over how to produce the reports instead. So the end product of this will be to produce, these are all of the different ecological sites in Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. There's about 60 in there. And so for this process, you basically just need to initiate the process, get it started, and then using R, you basically loop through all of these ecological sites. So you initiate the process, and then this process is going to build a report for each ecological site, whether it's for a soil survey area or an MLRA that you're interested in. It's going to produce a report for all the ecological sites within the constraints that you have defined. It does so fairly fairly rapidly. It produces a report about every 30 seconds. So, for 60 sites, it does take, about 30 minutes. So it's the type of process that you can get started and then work on some other things while it's running in the background. Okay. So let's look at how to run this. So we'll start off by going to, you can just Google search Nathan Rowe GitHub. And the top result here should be my GitHub page. The URL is github.com/NateARowe. And then in the top left here, there is a repository here called Edit Ecosite Data. You can click on that. And that takes you to the repository. It has all the files that are needed to run this report. And then you can click on this green button that says code. It drops you down with some options. At the bottom, there's download zip. Okay, so then let's create a new folder. And what MLRA are we going to run this on? We'll run it for a certain MLRA. I'm actually going to look at some of the ones I've run in the past. Let's do it for, so we're going to create, I'm going to go create new folder. Let's say we're running this on MLRA 97 ecosite reports. Okay. So for your example, whatever MLRA you're running this for, you would specify there. Then you can save that zip file right into the folder that you created. Then you navigate to that folder. So this is in my documents and then MLRA 97 ecosite reports. It's a zipped folder right now. So you'll need to right click and you go extract all. Okay, and then it opens that extracted file. Now let's go to the README. This has all the instructions. Okay, so this is step by step what you need to do to run this report. I'm going to go through it in video form for those of you that's more helpful for. But you can also go through this this Word document and have step-by-step instructions on exactly how to produce this report. You'll see in the first thing is kind of a prerequisite, and it's actually the prerequisite from the Stats for Soil Survey course. Okay, so you're going to need to start with this, and it's downloading R and creating a connection between R and NASAS so that those two things can communicate with each other, and downloading a few packages. So for those of you that have taken the Stats for Soil Survey course, you'll have already gone through this process. For those of you that have not, it's detailed step by step. And lots of people have gone through it. There's likely someone in your office that if you run into issues, or you can contact me, or probably lots of other people, but you can definitely get through that. It's not a barrier to entry. Once you have R downloaded and have connected it to NASAS, then you can start running this process. So we have decided that we're going to run this report. Sorry, that's the wrong folder there. We're going to run this report for MLRA 97. Okay. So then you can come back to my GitHub page, back to the main page. So github.com/NateAro. And there is a different repository in the top right here called Map Units in MLRA. You can click that. And then there's a link here to a Shiny app, which you can click. Okay, the purpose of this Shiny app is to determine what map units are in your MLRA of interest. And the report is, or this Shiny app is going to return the map unit keys, the MU keys that you need to use for a NASAS report to build an ecological site report for your MLRA. So we said we were going to work on MLRA 97. So you put in 97 here and you hit apply changes. Down at the bottom, it says, are there multiple groups? No, you only need to use the group 1 tab. So in the group 1 tab will be all of the map unit keys that we need. So we can highlight those and hit copy. Okay. You'll notice there are a group 2, a group 3, a group 4. Why are those there? These groups basically partition your data into groups of 2,200 map units. And the reason that it does that is NASAS, commonly NASAS reports and queries and things like that, they're limited to 2,200 terms to be used in the query. So if you put 5,000 map units into the report that we're going to end up running, it would come back and say that's too many. We can't run it with that. So this basically just breaks it into groups of 2,200. So you would get your first group of 2,200, and then if there were multiple groups, which it would tell you here, are there multiple groups? If it said yes, then you'd get your group 1, then you'd go to your group 2 and see, here it will state that there are less than, sorry, it was 2,100. There are less than 2,100 map units, so you don't have a group 2. But if there were more, you would grab those from the group 2. Okay, I'll quickly just mention this membership. So you define your MLRA of interest, and then you also define the membership. And this defines what percent of the acreage of your map unit needs to be in the MLRA defined for it to be part of the group of map units returned. So what does that mean exactly? So if we had a map unit, that map unit, if more than 10% of its acreage were in MLRA 97, if 12% of its total acreage were in MLRA 97, and this is all working on spatial data. Okay, so this is looking at the actual spatial data, the spatial extent of the MLRA and the spatial extent of the map units using Surgo data. So when Surgo is updated, this process is updated. And so if 12% of your map units acreage was in MLRA 97, it would be reported here. If only 8% of the total acreage were in 97, it would not be reported. And this is a value that you can change. So if you want your map units to have at least 50% of their acreage in MLRA 97, then you could put 50 here and you'd hit apply changes, and that would change which map units are provided to you. Okay, so that's a way to get your map units that are in an MLRA of interest. And this is, as far as I am aware, the most robust approach for doing this. Looking at the spatial relationships between these things is the best way to do it, because in NASAS, if you just searched by MLRA 97, some of those tables are not completely populated. There's not always a defined relationship between the MLRA and the map unit. So that is not the best way to do it by querying by MLRA in NASAS. So I would recommend using this approach for that step. Okay, so now we have obtained all of our map unit keys. So what are we going to do with that? Now we can come to NASAS. In NASAS, we can come to reports here. So we come to reports. There are lots of different folders, and we're going to go to the MLRA02_Davis folder. We're going to scroll down to export, and then export ecological site concept data by MU key list v4. So this is the report that we're going to want to run. We right-click that and we say run against national database. Okay, so now we're able to provide this with a list of MU keys, as it says here. MU key list separated by commas. Well, that's what we just copied over on that Shiny app. So we paste in that list of MU keys, and then you have options of whether you want major components, minor components, both, whatever you want. So if you said true, would be just major components. True and false would be both major and minor components. If for some reason you wanted just minor components, you would do just false. For this example, I'm going to do just true. We're only going to work with major components. So we'll run that report, and this is going to produce a report basically summarizing all of the components correlated to your ecological site. And it's going to create an HTML file that is going to pop up in your browser. So it'll pop up there. Once we have that in our browser, we'll copy it and paste it into Excel, and then we will set it up so that R can access that, that file. So up to this point, I'm guessing that this is probably quite similar to what other folks have been doing. This report here is probably pretty similar to reports that all of you have used in the past. I will say that I've kind of worked with folks in my office to make a variety of improvements to this report for things like subsurface fragments and surface fragments. Those things can have some issues where you're working particularly with subsurface fragments and working with lows and high values. It gets a little bit trickier than you would like, and I'll talk about that more in the video that I'm going to put together about how this report calculates things and how to use it. But I'll just leave it at saying that there's been some thought put into making things really work appropriately for ecological sites in this report, and you will need to run this report for it to be compatible with the rest of this process. Okay, so we saw that output be generated into our browser here. And so I'm going to do Control A to select everything here. And then I'm going to right click and say copy. I'm going to come down and search for Excel. Okay, open up Excel, blank workbook. And then I'm going to do paste. Okay, so now we've pasted that report. And so what you can see here is that each of these rows is for a different component ID. We've got our component IDs here. So each of these is a different component, and it's basically just summarizing lots of ecological properties for components. And then it will also have an ecological site ID. And so what this report is doing is it's grouping things for those that have the same ecological site ID. It takes all of these different properties that are summarized, and it just kind of summarizes that data. It groups them together by ecological site, and then kind of gives all the range of properties that you're seeing in the components that are correlated to that ecological site. Okay, so now we're going to go File, Save As, and then we're going to browse, and we want to find that location where we saved all those files from the repository. And so that was in MLRA 97 ecosite reports. So we'll click that, and then we'll just go back here. So we clicked, we clicked the MLRA 97 ecosite reports, and then it says edit ecosite data main 2. We click that, then it says edit ecosite data main. We click that, and now there's nothing in here. We're going to change the save as type, and we're going to go to CSV, comma delimited. When we do that, now we see that there is a comma delimited file that's in this folder. We're going to click it so that the file name becomes the same, and we're going to overwrite this file. So we click it, and then we're going to go save, and it says, do you really want to replace it? Yes. Okay, so now we just replaced the default file that came with the repository that we downloaded and saved in our own information. Okay, so now let's go back to that folder. So MLRA 97 ecosite reports, and then we'll go into edit ecosite data main 2, and make sure you're going into the non-zipped folder here, and then edit ecosite data main. Okay, and now we have one file here that the type is an R project, and its name is edit ecosite data. And we're going to open that file. Okay, so now this is just opened an R project in RStudio, and we're going to open the activeecosites.rmd file. Okay, so this file here has, for lots of the files that are saved here that you're interacting with, there's oftentimes information at the top that is worth reading to make sure that you're using it properly. I won't read it off to you because you can all do that yourself, but I'll point out that here on line 25, it defines the MLRAs that you're working with. Sometimes in your, you could have, we're working on MLRA 97, okay? But sometimes the components in MLRA 97, they could be correlated to an ecosite that's actually associated with, I'm just making things up here, but MLRA 88. You know, so the component is in MLRA 97, but the component is correlated to an MLRA 88 ecosite. So if you are interested in, we'll put, we know we're interested in 097. But what if we're also interested in 088? Then we would put that. If there's some, you know, adjacent or similar MLRA that you also want you want reports for ecosites from that MLRA, then you want to include that MLRA here. Make sure that you read this section, and it basically says it should have 3 numeric digits. That's why we have 097. 088. For example, MLRA 18 would be 018. MLRA 22 would be 022, or MLRA 22A would be 022A. MLRA 109 would be 109. Okay, so I'm actually only interested in MLRA 97. So I'll just put 097 there. And then I can come up here and hit this knit button. It has a little spool of yarn with a needle, and it says knit. And I click that. Okay. And now we can see that in this report, we have all these ecosites that are correlated to MLRA or ecosites from MLRA 97, right? And then it will tell you the number of components that it was correlated to. We chose not to include minor components, so all the minor components will be 0 here. So they'll all be major components, but it'll tell you how many components each ecosite's correlated to. And you'll see how many total components there are. Or ecological sites there are. There's 68 ecological sites. And there's some other information in here that that you may want to look at, but I'll direct you down towards this part here, which gives us this concatenated list of ecological sites. So what we're going to want to do is take from the C and then the open parenthesis all the way to the close parenthesis. Notice I'm not including those quotation marks. Okay, and I'm going to go right click, copy. And now I'm going to come to this file here, NASA's data to edit multiple.rmd. I click that. Oh, excuse me. That's actually not the file that I meant to open, but that's a file that you could certainly look at. This is actually how the report summarizes all of this information. This is the actual process of creating all these figures and all of that. You don't need to look at it, but if it's of interest to you, you can. What we want to open is the for loop file.r. Okay, so the for loop file.r opens, and now we can take this portion from the C and the open parenthesis, which is what we just copied. We're trying to replace this. So we take that and we scroll all the way over to the close parenthesis and delete it. So now it says ecosites of interest, and then it's a less than and a dash. And now if we paste here, then it now pastes in all of these ecological sites that we just concatenated in the previous step. We hit save here. And then we can hit right click, select all, and then hit run here. Okay, so we just initiated this process of building all of these ecological sites. We can see it kind of going through what percent. So it's working on its first ecological site right now. It's about 50% done. And when it finishes, we will see it pop up in this folder. And when it finishes the first one, it will start building the second one. While this is all happening, there's a couple things that I do want to mention. So we'll come back to that and see how its progress is working out. The first thing that I want to mention is, what if you had an MLRA, for instance, let's put in 0, or here we can just do 22A. Put this back down to 10%, and we'll apply the changes. So this is MLRA 22, that's the Sierra Nevada Mountains. And it says, yes, there are multiple groups. Okay, so we're going to have map units in group 1. We're going to have map units in group 2. And then we see group 3 says there's no map units here. So we've got 2 groups, right? So how does it work if you have 2 groups? Well, you start off with the same process. You would copy these map unit keys, and then you would come over and you would run the same report. This is the same report that we ran. And just to remind you, we right-clicked it and we said run against the national database. And then we pasted in that group, right? So after you paste that in, it will produce the report, and it will open that report in your browser, right? So we ran the report in NASAS, and when that report finishes, it opens up in your browser with everything. And then we copied that, Control A, and then we can copy it, and then we pasted it into Excel here, right? Okay, so what if you had 2 different groups of sites that you needed to do, right? Well, you'd start off the first way. You'd take group 1 and you'd go all the way to the point where you have it in Excel, right? And then once it's in Excel, let's start and working on the group 2. So then you'd come and you would take all your map unit keys from group 2, and you would copy those, and you would come to NASAS, and you would do the same thing, right-click, run against national. You would paste these into the list of MUnit keys, or map MU keys, determine whether you want true or false. It should be the same as what you did for the group 1, and then you would run it. Okay, and then once those results were completed and they popped up here, these haven't completed. This is the old one, but I'll just show you how it works. Control A, and then copy it, right? And then you can come to Excel and go File, New. So just like we did last time, right? But this time we'll paste it in. So now we have 2 different Excel files working. One was all of our group 1 information, and then the second one is all of our group 2 information. Well, this is our group 2 information. We don't need this header again, because what we're going to do is we're just going to take all of our group 2 results and paste them down at the bottom below all of our group 1s. So we choose the header here, which is all the column headers: area symbol, area name, MU sim, national MU sim. We're going to delete that. And now we can go Control A and then copy all of this. And then we come back to that first one that we did. That first one still has the column headers, and we just come all the way down to the bottom and click in that cell there, and you hit paste. And now you pasted them in down below. So now we have both the group 1 and the group 2s in the same thing. And then you would just go and you'd go File, Save As, just like we did last time, Browse, and then you would replace that ecosite report. So that's how you would approach this if you had multiple groups. We just looked at 2 groups. So you're just trying to get all of those results in one file. And if you had 3 groups, you do the same thing. You just keep pasting, that next group, whether it's 2 groups or 3 groups or 4 groups, and it's rare to have more than 2 groups, I'll say, and I wish there was a little bit. It is a little bit tedious to do this, but it doesn't take too long, and it's just how you have to do it because NASAS is limited by how many terms you can put into a query. But once you get them all those results combined in that Excel file, then you continue the process just like we did, where you replace that ecosite report file with your file, and then you go through the process in R. So now let's come back and look at, here's MLRA 97, and we can see now we have, I don't know, 10 ecological sites here that we've produced a report for, and it's still running more. So let's open one of them. You can see this is just kind of loading. These take a second to load. Okay, we can probably get to the beginning part. Okay, so here's our report. And this is how all of our reports will be populated. Again, I'm not going to go over the details of the report. That'll be in a separate video. But that was what I was hoping to accomplish with you, is show you how to initiate the process of building these reports. And this will go through and build a report for all of those. I forget how many ecological sites we determined. There were 68 ecological sites. So it will produce a report for all 68 ecological sites. Now, in the event that you hit some sort of error, this process has been tested on a lot of different data now, and it is fairly robust. But if you were to see in R here, where it's going through and building these reports, if it stopped and stated some sort of error that occurred, that's something that I would love to hear about. So if that happens to you, reach out to me and let me know what error occurred. There are some situations where weird data anomalies. I've seen situations where like a component low value is higher than a component high value. Things like that do have the capability of confusing and kind of breaking this report. Sometimes it's something that we can make a change in the report to make it more robust, and other times it's better to, if it's the result of some essentially data entry error, then you can correct that data entry error in NASAS. But yeah, I hope that this report is helpful, and in the other video, which I'll put a link to the other video down in the description so that you can see how this report does things and how you should use it. But I'll leave this off at this point. So thanks for watching, and I hope this is useful for all of you, and let me know if you have any questions.